All right, good afternoon, everyone. We're starting sharp at 4. I love it. Welcome to Switching Hats, an event organized by Adobe and ArgilDX, powered by Times Internet. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I hope you're all doing well and staying safe. My name is Sapan Verma. I'm a stand-up comedian. In case you're wondering what I am doing here, Adobe has promised me they're going to give me all the free softwares for lifetime. I will make memes using Photoshop after that. But today's panel, as you guys know, it's called Switching Hats, and we're going to talk about identifying and agreeing on values while making a buying decision. I'm sure this happens in every corporate. It also happens in every group, friends group, in families also, right? I'll give you an example. Me and my family, we've been trying to decide what car to buy for the last 2 years. So everybody in the family is of a different opinion. Since I'm going to drive the car, I'm looking at what are the features, what kind of engine, because I'm really excited about that. My father is being a typical father. He's looking at mileage कितना देगी गाड़ी और कितने की पड़ेगी और सर्विसिंग कैसी होती है. Typical father. And my mother is looking at the back seat comfort and the safety. And since three of us can't come to any conclusion, we are still traveling in Ola Auto because that's how middle class my family is. But today is not about me. Today we've got a wonderful panel of different levels of C-level executives from different parts of the country representing different industries who will help me talk about this. And while I call them on stage, as I said that we're talking about switching hats and agreeing on values, I'm also going to ask one common question to break the ice to each panelist, which is that what is the one thing that you own and value that maybe others in your family don't? For example, for me, that would be my PlayStation gaming console. I think it's amazing. I think it's really helping me, pass time in this pandemic. But my parents, my wife, everybody thinks it's a waste of time. So that's going to be the opening question. Let me introduce your participants. Firstly, we have Mr. Pradeep Dwivedi, who's the Group CEO and Executive Director, Eros International Media Limited, Eros STX India. Pradeep, sir, if you can unmute yourself. Hello, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing Sapan fine. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
So firstly, I heard that from the last time we did this panel, you were the last panel also, you have already been promoted. So
Well,
many
that's so kind.
congratulations.
Thank you so much for
And
that.
we will not take credit for that, but you never know.
No, the credit is always with the well-wishers, so the credit is entirely to you.
Amazing. Thank you for joining us again, sir. Just as I said, what is one thing that you own and value that people around you don't value as much? Do you have something like that?
I stay in Mumbai where every square feet counts. So even if you keep a brick in the house, your wife will tell you that it costs, X thousands of rupees to us for us to keep that brick there. And what I value most is over 25 plus years of working, I have accumulated this collection of books that I believe is amazing. But today's
Oh, wow.
generation believes is perhaps not really needed because everything comes in a Kindle and you don't need physical space. So everybody cribs about just the sheer volume of books that I have, which
Right.
I love, and others perhaps don't as much.
Today's generation does not even read, sir. It's all about memes and Instagram.
Well,
That's what it
I'm
is.
learning it the hard way.
But thank you for joining us. I will introduce our next participant. We have Mr. Samit Goha, who's Chief Financial and Technical Officer, MMTC PAMP India. Hello, Samit, sir.
Hi Saban. How are you?
Hi,
Thanks for
I'm
having
good.
me on the show.
Thank you for joining me. So, what is something that you own and value that others are not valuing around you?
So, I'll go a little on the intangible side compared to what Pradeep said. I think now, at this stage, I think I value the fact that I'm reasonably disciplined and organized, which
Right.
my family nobody values, especially my children. And when I
So this
anecdotally
is,
think about this, Sapan, I think it was the same with me and my father. My father
of course.
used to think that he was very disciplined and organized and I
Yeah, yeah.
wasn't.
You only reach a certain age and realize that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Samit sir gave a very Miss India kind of answer, a very intangible, like very proper answer. Our next panelist, we have Mr. Amit Tiwari, Chief Marketing Officer, Havels. Thank you for joining, Amit sir.
Hi, Sabin. Hi, good evening, everyone. Nice to meet you.
Good. Thank you for joining us. Please tell us something that you own and value that people
I
don't.
think I was about to say something, but Pradeep has already stolen that particular thing because books is something, and that is because
Books.
I can't something take without books because the smell of the books makes me literally. But I think I'll tell you most things and most of the family my doesn't value is my fitness regime, which I follow
Oh,
irrespective of whatever it is, and they say it's completely waste of time. I don't know what are you trying to do, and
okay.
irrespective whatever the day wherever I'm traveling, I try to maintain that entire regime. That's how it
So
is.
you have made all of us conscious on this panel already with your fitness regime. we're not going to tilt our cameras down at all and show our bellies. And we, of course, have Mr. Nitin Singhal, who's the MD Digital Experience Adobe India. Nitin sir, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Saban.
Thank you for joining us. What is something that you own and value? Come on, tell us.
Well, frankly, it wouldn't be that obvious, but I'm a techno geek, so I like to bring all kinds of gadgets at home, a whole lot
Right,
of automation that I do. My family hates it because it makes it complex for them. So, it's like opening doors and having telephone exchanges and software all around the place. And, I love to see, televisions with technology.
right.
Frankly, to the extent that, you talked about your PlayStation.
Yeah,
I have a 15-year-old son who's all about Xbox,
yeah.
and when he doesn't come to the dinner table on time, I can actually switch off his Xbox sitting at the dinner table. So my
Oh
family
my God.
definitely hates me.
That is some brutal lessons for kids we're learning from you. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. And of course, we have my co-host, the Robin to my Batman. We have Ankur Mittal, the CEO and co-founder of ArgilDX Consulting, who will kind of be running. Actually, he's the Batman. He owns all the cool tech. I am just here on a laptop. Ankur, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Sapan.
Ankur, what do you own? Tell us something.
I'm actually right now between moving homes, and I have a big collection of cassettes. I don't have my player anymore, and my wife actually wanted me to get rid of that. But
Okay.
those are the cassettes I kind of grown up with. I still have those Dalit Mehendi first album, so can't
Oh
can't
my God.
get rid of
You
them.
have increased the mental age of this panel suddenly by 10 years by
Yeah,
mentioning cassettes, not even CDs. You've gone to the 90s
yeah,
with cassettes. Lovely. So,
that's-
Ankur, you will also be helping us conduct some audience poll. And for the audience who's watching it, please, Ankur will tell you how we're going to do it. But there are some prizes for the good answers and the wise answers that you gave us. So, Ankur, you want to tell the audience quickly how you want to do it?
Sure. Since our topic was switching hats, I thought let me switch my hat and also bring in the audience opinion into the conversation. Typically, we talk as panelists, but I wanted to kind of bring the voice of audience. So I'm kind of
Right,
switching the hat today, and I'm going to be talking from the audience perspective. We have a
right,
platform called Menti. I have just posted the link on the Zoom chat, so our audience should be able to access it. As soon as they
right.
click on it, they will see 4 questions back to back, and they can answer it right away. And I will basically bring those questions from time to time into our panel discussion, and
Perfect.
bring in our audience flavor as well.
Awesome. So, audience members, you can see it on the Zoom chat. The link is there. Please click on it. Please feel free to answer the whatever you feel like. And as we said, we have some prizes that we will reach out to you after the panel, and we will do the needful. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I think to start off with, as you're talking about switching hats and identifying and agreeing on values, the first and the most basic question, which I'm opening to the panel with, is that how do you know whether your customer experience even needs improvement? How do you measure and how do you find out? We can start with anybody who wants to start.
Well, I was about to offer up Amit to give that
You can start. No.
explanation, but let me put it this way. See, we are discussing values and what's important to businesses these days, and in the current context of this rapidly evolving paradigms on leveraging of technology, the confluence of entertainment and information sort of coming together and being consumed almost on an on-the-go basis all the time. I mean, just
Yeah,
the sheer information overload that our sensory receptors are receiving has made it a challenge for anybody to have meaningful engagements with audiences, with people. I mean, I'm in
yeah,
the entertainment business. We run a film studio and we run a streaming service. So we believe, I mean, not believe, I mean, we actually have declared as of end of last quarter over 220 million subscribers that consume our content. But the fact is that if I look at the 220 million that I have, am I able to relate to each one of them? So the whole concept today in terms of what businesses are striving to do while they have larger masses of consumers and customers to deal with is how do I deal with that segment of one? If Sapan
uh-huh.
Verma is consuming my content, how do I keep him hooked on, make him not
Right,
only like my content, consume my product, consume it
yeah,
on a sustainable basis, and most
yeah,
importantly, pay me for it and feel
right,
good at the end of it, right?
yeah,
So that's the
yeah,
holy grail that we are all aspiring towards. I'll take a pause here But I guess the dilemma is not very different for anybody, irrespective of the kind of business that you're running.
Fair. Sir, if you want to impress Sapan Verma, it's very simple. You hire him to make content for you and pay him. I think that is the short.
Well, yeah, last time also we owed that conversation. I think we need to do that this time.
This panel is just me requesting everybody to give me work, basically.
And
That's why
Sapan, we could help you with a lot of technology to make it look good.
Of course. That's why I'm here. Amit sir, do you want to tell us how do you understand if your customer experience even needs improvement?
Yeah, I think just to build on upon what Pradeep said, he rightly stitched the chord very nicely in terms of building it. If you see today, satisfaction is a passing, whether you are in product, services, anything. And delight is something that is the new currency that need to look for. If today my customer says that today I'm very satisfied, I think I've not done my job today. If he says, but I'm delighted for what the service that you actually provide, what interaction that you actually provide, what interactions plus engagement that you have provide, I think that is what you need to build. And what happens once you reach to a delighted state, then it is very difficult to maintain and actually try to have the delight every time. Once that delight goes down, then it becomes extremely difficult to retain that same. What happens is just a comparison. The last interaction of the same brand is not better than what it has today. Or last time it was better than you're actually having today. That's what I always saying, and that's what I've been making in most of my discussion is don't try to actually make the brand. Just try to make the customer. If your customer and consumers are happy, they will make your brand automatically. So I think it's a continuous exercise, and that's how you need to build across that. There will never be an end. There will never be an end to the road that how would be a delight measures and all. I think there will be a lot of matrices and KPIs, and that's not the point. The bigger point is you have to continuously work. To get that particular delight and keep that particular delight where it is. That's how actually I see from my particular experience.
Amazing. Samit sir, any insight over here from your end?
So, while Amit and Pradeep are the experts on this, I think my quick key takeaway and continuing from what Amit said is, I think at one point of time we used to say brand is the lead indicator, and if your brand is good, the product or the service is extremely good. And I think as Amit rightly said, today brand is really the lag indicator, and one of the significant factors which impacts brands is how your customer experience and how you're really delighting your customers. And there are various ways of measuring how your brand is doing in terms of ITPs, etc. So an indicator could be really of how you're servicing your customer, could be how your brand is at the end faring. That I think is an indirect lag kind of an indicator. In terms of direct indicators, you today have social feeds, you have the kind of response you're getting on blogs and social networks to understand how your customers are actually talking about you, your product, your service, your brand. And there are indirect indicators of what kind of premium you're able to get over your competitor product. So I think these indicators in a way speak about how customer is actually experiencing you, whether he's satisfied, whether he's delighted, or whether he doesn't bother about you.
Okay, understood. Nitin sir, any insight from your end since you're looking at from the other side?
No, absolutely. Well, I'm also selling, right? So I definitely look at customer experience as a very clear indicator. Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing I must say that there's a golden rule that I follow, right? Which is basically don't expect what you don't inspect. And it's a very clear view on anything that you do, right? So when I look at customer experience, so how do you really measure what's going on with your customers? What KPIs, what is the way that you're able to gather information? And as Amit put it, that it's not about transaction. A lot of, customers that I see think of loyalty as a transaction. Loyalty is not a transaction. It's a journey. And we've seen brands in the market, for example, imagine Fitbit out of nowhere, right? But what did they do? They rewarded your journey. They created a, compete between among, your, friends amongst the community, and suddenly it became a brand that people, forced to reckon with in this smartwatches, right? So there are so many examples. I think it's very important to, not have blind sight. So sometimes you have this legacy that I'm this brand. Frankly, look at the tech sector, how it's changed, right? You have companies which are valued billions of dollars out of nowhere. So that's what I would actually put.
Amazing. Very, very, very different insight from everybody else because you're representing your side also. I want to ask you guys, since you guys are all from different industries, if you can give some real life examples, maybe from your industry, about what are the differences between different C-level executives when they're making this decision of, customer service investment? Because I'm sure everybody looks at it from different hats and different thinking hats. So what are the different ways people look at it from your industry? If you have some examples, that would be really helpful. Samit, sir, would you like to tell us something?
Yeah, so while I'm just thinking of experiences across my earlier companies, like Airtel or the Oberois, but I think I will stick to what we are trying to do in MMTC PAM. And in MMTC PAM, a lot of people wouldn't know us because we are primarily a B2B precious metals player. So we actually sell gold and silver in tons, but to the B2B sector. But we are now trying to get into the consumer side of the business, and we are trying to look at how we can really engage consumers to directly buying gold from us in the terms of pendants or coins, etc. We can't sell jewelry because we are not jewelers. And interestingly, we are at that stage where we are, evaluating how to really get into this, so-called digital transformation. And I think, thankfully, what all the CXOs agree now, and I think people are reasonably evolved to that, is it has to be with the consumer at the center. I think that the IT head, the CTO, the CFO, the CSO, the CMO, of course the CEO, everybody realizes that it has to be with the consumer at the center. So there is no disconnect about that. And I think I think there is great value, which, for example, of course, the CFO, if I wear my CFO hat, and at the end, eventually after a 3-year period, I would like to see, if there is an investment which I've made, what is the return on the investment, what is the kind of break-even period, which are very cliched, standard, financial matrices, which are, years old. But I think, for example, similarly, I think it is a great opportunity for the CIO or the CTO to really revamp the entire tech landscape, because while the digital transformation really sits at the forefront in terms of consumer experience interacting with the customer, but I think it is a great opportunity and a great value which the CTO sees in terms of really cleaning up the entire tech space, whether it is the middle stack, whether it is the ERP, how different systems integrate, talk to each other. So I think that's how the CTO CIO sees value. The CFO ultimately sees value in terms of the financial matrices. And I think the key stakeholder here really is the CMO or the CSO or the person who's really driving revenue in the organization. Because for them, really, it is about understanding how much more of the so-called digital revenue will we be able to get in our organization. Because frankly, our digital revenue would be in the nature in single digits. So they will see value in understanding, for example, there's a large customer who's consuming products and services digitally. How can we get that piece of the pie? So, different CXOs, but the good thing is I see all of them talk about
customer, consumer. Got it. Amit, sir, any insight from your side, from your industry?
Sapal, I think just building on what Samit said, just a little different perspective. And he rightly said in terms of that, how does CIO and CEO, everybody talks about customer because customer is the new currency talk. But what happens is specifically and somebody in, let's say, after independence, somebody came and gave a very good idea that everything should be measured in ROI. Whether an ROI sits for a consumer delight or a consumer experience for a marketing person, for me, it's very uncomfortable for me to even have the discussion of ROI. Because it may be a return on investment for a finance guy, but for me, it is a return on insights and return on innovation that I think. But how do I actually calculate the return on insights and return on innovation in the entire prospect is that for me, it is not about ROI. For me, it is consumer delight experience. Can I actually do a consumer delight experience index? Can I do a consumer engagement index for me? Because it may not be giving me a direct moolah today. It may not be giving a direct matrix today. But end of the day, this is helping me to get that particular foundation built today. That foundation will help for a brand. For a brand, what will be an ROI? You can't say in terms of this is my tangible value of brand today. Tomorrow I've done this marketing and it has gone to this level. And that is even from, I think, from a CFO perspective, or there has to be a separate matrix for different functions and micro function that you need to have. One size will not fit for all because that doesn't serve the purpose that actually you are actually trying to attempt.
Understood. Pradeep, sir, anything from your side on this?
Yeah, I think both Samit and Amit brought out very relevant points. I think in terms of being sensitive to what the customer wants, and the customer, see, the funny thing is, all of us, every single executive that works in a corporate sector or in an organization, believes that he is the bearer of responsibility for the customer. The finance guy says, I have to, sort of optimize the cost so that I can give it at the lowest possible price point. The customer service guy says, I'm serving the customer, so I'm taking care of all of his technical, non-technical product related problems. The product designer says, I'm
Everybody
designing
has,
it.
everybody takes
Everybody
turns.
has their view. And it is actually true because it's a combination of all of them coming together. So, from my current vantage point, when I look at it myself as a bit of a Zubin Mehta. I don't know how many of you are fans of Zubin Mehta. The New York Philharmonic Orchestra player. So, like a CFO, a CIO, a CTO, a Chief Product Officer, and the entire team. Everybody's got their specialization. Somebody's got drums, somebody's got percussion, somebody's got guitar, somebody's got saxophone. But until all of that sort of works together in harmony, you don't get great music, right?
Right.
And the audience that has come here has come for the music. It has not come for your expertise in playing drums or your expertise in playing the guitar well. So I think it's the harmony that you create in an organization by making sure that, to borrow again from Samit's word, how do you keep the customer at the center of it to make sure that all of your actions are ultimately resulting in tangible experiences being felt by the consumer or the customer? It could be a B2B offering, it could be a B2C offering. The fundamental realities of marketing and consumer interface does not change. What becomes extremely important is that it is nice to say that, you need to do everything for the customer and all of us would like to do, but the theory of constraints is a very big factor that weighs in everybody's mind. Marketing has only so many dollars that it can spend on promoting the product. Product design teams have only so much time period. Even if they have unlimited supply of money, I mean, it's like, you can't have, 9 ladies, if I may say so, pregnant for a month and produce a child, right? There is a certain time period for product creation of a new product that takes its own time. So everybody needs to be given the latitude or the bandwidth to be able to do what they do best. You can mitigate their constraints to the maximum extent possible. So it becomes extremely important for the organization and for the leaders of an organization to be able to identify those constraints and remove those roadblocks so that teams can do their job the best. Now,
you've given very interesting insights.
And these are internal factors. If I can just take one more minute and talk about externalities, right? February 2020, all of us were sitting pretty. Most of us were creating what were known in our organizations as annual operating plans, long range plans, making presentations. Here is our vision 2030, and looking at it, we are entering 2020. And also at the same time saying, oh, vision 2010 document, let's take out and figure out, are we anywhere near our vision 2020? And then comes a pandemic that completely changes all of the equation. So the bearing of externality in the decision-making process for consumer experiences is also extremely significant. And I think we need to be agile, we need to be nimble to be able to take that factor and make changes as we go along. The span of horizon of planning and execution is not a quarter. It's not a month, it's not a week. Sometimes it is days and hours.
Lifetime.
And I think that's what we need to wake up to.
Yeah, I think comparing a CEO to a Zubin Mehta, you made CEO sound very cool with that. I'm most excited about that. Nitin sir, what would you call yourself if not Zubin Mehta in this case?
Well, interesting point, and I completely agree. I think pandemic did change working together. So I think the CIO, CEO, CXOs of the organization, in fact, even the CFO, they needed to come together and really see what's the change that they need to bring in the organization. Competitive differentiation. No longer it was the challenge of the CIO or the CMO or really the person who needs to actually go do sales. I think one important aspect that was brought out, organizations that have been successful, you have a Zubin Mehta inside the organization. And sometimes, as providers of technology, working with so many customers, we need to perform the part of Zubin Mehta. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. And I would say that it gives a good insight that maybe organizations that are on on our other side, which is the audience, they need to actually find their Zubin Mehta in their organization and make it work.
Right. Understood. Thank you so much. Before we move on to the next question, I would just like to bring Ankur in with some audience poll insight that we've got so far.
Oh, thanks, Sapan. We have got some very interesting, poll from the audience. I hope my screen is visible. I'm going to share. So, though our audience kind of feels same, but I got very interesting inputs, and I definitely empathize with the gentleman who answered wife. I definitely look at my wife and I'm about to make investment. But one thing that came was crypto and safety. And in fact, I would like to
Wow.
very quickly take a input from Nitin because he's dealing with so many customers. Uh, how much do you feel, Nitin, people kind of weigh in safety and security of data, customer data, dependability when they are kind of bringing in thoughts about the CX investment and they are kind of thinking about the digital transformation?
Sure. So I think, Ankur, it's safety and security first. At a broader level, pandemic has taught us that safety and security is a very critical part of our lives. And the plethora of news that we have heard about customer data being misutilized, all the things that have happened. I think from an Adobe perspective, we have security as part of our basic DNA, right? When you look at the way that technology is transitioning, the whole aspect of cookie-less and first-party data becoming more and more relevant in the world, it is a very critical part of anything that we do with our customers.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'll probably chime in a little later, Sapan, with our audience.
Yeah. I think Ankur, you've got the winner for this one. The guy who answered wife is the universal winner for every poll.
He's the most honest guy, I can definitely say.
That's because he's not seen on camera.
Yeah.
So he can be honest. My next question to Pradeep. So Pradeep, you're the CEO. As a CEO's perspective, we hear so many like CEOs, the captain of the ship. But realistically, you have also so many fragile egos in every company, right? Every C-level executive has different ideas and mindsets while making these buying decisions. So are there some common points where everybody comes together? As a CEO, what do you see?
See, first of all, I mean, this whole captain of the ship thing is right. I mean, there are times when you perhaps need to take decisions that, are tough or something that requires resolution of differences of opinion and arriving at a common thread so that everybody can work together. But typically, you ask any CEO, they're all chief everything officer. They end up doing almost a little bit of everything. And,
Right.
and that translates into their levels of empathy and levels of understanding of various functional imperatives. I think
Understood.
what tends to happen and what is extremely, in my experience, fruitful and enabling for me has been if there is clarity of communication and clarity of expectations. I think once you're clear on what you want to do and you have told your team or your CXOs what your constraints are, I think you find that they are able to come up with solutions which are far better than what one person or any given CEO may be able to think through of, right? So
Understood.
the bottom
Got it.
line is that, and it's an old adage or an old cliche, but teamwork and the entire team understanding what the imperative is, how we need to get all together and solve for the customer is what will drive the agenda. Now,
Got it.
easier said than done. There are scenarios where there are certain people who are very strong-headed or have very strong ideas, opinionated, may want to run away with an agenda in a particular way. I think what
Yeah.
I've realized this is very effective, is that sometimes you need to give people a little bit of independence to go out and do their own thing. Create a
Got
test
it.
group and a control group. If they want to experiment with something on a CX matter, they want to experiment with a new social media campaign, a new tool, a new
Let
methodology,
them try. Let them
a new
experiment.
visual mnemonic. Let them try it out, because
Understood.
ultimately, nobody likes to be told that they are wrong. But
Yeah.
if you go out and do your own experiment, whether you're right or wrong, the market will tell you. And sometimes
Yeah.
that mirror of the market is actually a very
Yeah.
great example. And like Nitin pointed out, I mean, as consultants, as advisors to companies that are leading large scale data or digital transformation, they try to
Yeah.
act like Zubin Mehta. There are certain followers, certain acolytes who love what they're doing and want to learn a lot more so that they can improve. And then there are certain people who say, look, boss, this is not invented here, so I don't know what you're trying to sell here. Number two, they think that they know better than the person who's teaching them. I mean, I think
Yeah.
the aspect of being a student and having that humility is extremely important for all professionals, notwithstanding their designation.
Perfect.
And
Yeah.
I think if we can keep that spirit alive, I think we'll all be successful.
Yeah. Wow. I think CEO's job is tough in that sense. You have to manage expectations from everyone and get everybody together.
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, it's true for everybody. I mean, you ask
True
a head
for
of
everybody.
marketing, a head of sales, head of
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah.
Everybody's dealing, and even they are leaders at the end of the day because they are managing
Yeah.
a function
100%.
which has
Yeah.
that capability. So,
Yeah.
the point essentially is that what you're trying to do is, if you're objective is to build superior customer experiences. That customer experiences is a manifestation of your product design, your product delivery, your product pricing, and your post-product purchase dissonance. When a consumer is actually experiencing your product, whether or not he or she is happy about it. And that is where your real value comes in, and your team's ability to, sort of that's where, as I say, as the rubber hits the road. That is where your real test happens. And if you're successful there, then all of your effort is, well worth it.
Makes sense. Samit, so you play a very interesting role because you are like playing two hats in one, which is great for us also. We got like two panelists for the price of one. You are a CFO and a technical officer CTO also. So firstly, I want to know, how do you differentiate between these two hats in your daily working? And secondly, as a CFO and CTO, when it comes to your customer experience, how do you define your goals for the organization? And since you're the CFO, how do you find out that this investment is full paisa vasool for me in very clear terms?
Okay, so there were three questions.
Three questions. First is the two different hats. How do you do that?
So look, I think they are at the end. There is a lot of convergence between these two roles, and I've discovered it because I did this earlier, and this is the second stint when I'm doing both I'm wearing the finance and the IT head hat. But I would say 80% of the jobs are very different. I mean, typically the only two places where typically a CFO and a CTO's role would converge is eventually the CTO comes back to the CFO for an approval for a IT capex or an investment. So here it's like because I am an active part in actually the proposal, so it helps in the approval for sure. So that is that in a
you apply and you approve.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, you have to wear the two hats and then get back to, like Amit said, boring questions of ROI, etc. But I think it helps in a way because I think, what I fundamentally believe, Sapan, is, increasingly now and even more so in the future, I think a lot of the fortunes of any company, whether you're in the B2B space or in the B2C space, and when I say fortunes, eventually every company is in the business of business, so you are there to make money.
Yeah, of course.
I think a lot of it depends upon how you're handling technology, because I also firmly believe that 90% of all solutions which corporates today face can be solved through technology. If that is the reality, and if you understood that, then as the CFO, you also understand that you need to support, technology investment, technology change, technology transformation in every sphere. And so in a way, when I play both these roles together, it helps me to understand that this is the reality. And when I'm looking and in the CFO hat, I also realized that without this, a lot of what the company wants to be or where it wants to go is not going to be achieved. And then when you put on the CTO hat, I think today there is so much of transformation happening across the entire tech space. I think there is just too much to choose from, and there is too much to do. I think you are only constrained by the time, by the priorities, and by the kind of cash you're able to spend. So it's a good mix, and you can switch between the two roles to that extent quite well.
I'm sure Nitin sir will be very happy when you said that 90% of your problems can be tackled with technology. Nitin sir, am I right in this?
Oh, absolutely. I think this is, this is the age of technology. I think you're seeing that in all businesses.
Yeah. So do you agree 90%, or do you want to take it to 100%, given that you are?
There's always a human touch. Otherwise,
absolutely. Amit sir, your industry is slightly different, because for a company like yours, you sell to customers, once in a while, slightly infrequently, right? So do you need to invest so much in like customer loyalty and customer experience? One. And two, how do you quantify that? Because the customer, like, as opposed to say Pradeep's business where people are coming back to their platform or something, how do you quantify that?
So I think there are two different parts to the same question. So first, in terms of, and I've read long time back that anybody who comes to your particular as an interaction to your, whether he buys, it doesn't buy, it is just like coming to your particular party, and you have thrown a party and someone, you are the host of that party.
You have to be a good host.
And if you're a host, you have to be a host. Whether he buys, doesn't buy, it doesn't matter end of the day. But he has interacted because that he has shown some interest in your particular product. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you really need to invest in something which is only for once or twice, because customer is a customer. You just can't in terms of building. And one thing which I will pick up from what Pradeep was saying, just putting into this perspective, and I firmly believe that there's no B2B or B2C. There's always P2P, because end of the day, it's people to people interaction that you're trying to do. So irrespective whether you come for one particular deal, even for as smallest as one particular product that need to be, that becomes a very, very important part of it. And today what happens is losing a customer becomes much more detractor, because he will actually spoil 5 other people with your product. Because I went to this particular person and they was not treated well, irrespective, fault may be yours. And now coming to your point, that how do you actually keep it, you need to, and that's what we actually tried to practice, is because of the veracity of product categories that we are in. The moment of delight, people previously used to talk about, it's my zero moment of truth, I bought this product perfectly fine, but your moment of delight is an end-to-end journey, where I bought this product, who installed this product, and who's giving the service to me.
Right.
All the
So
three
everything.
matrices are everything put together, and that is what the delight that actually comes to a customer. If any of the matrices goes down, even a small interaction with your call center, or the response even on
it's equally important,
that spoils the entire effort, and that's what you don't want to do it. And that's why you need to measure different satisfaction indexes of your consumer, so that at least that indexes are always high. That's how
I understand. Nitin, sir, you are seeing from the other side, right? You have the inside view. You're seeing everybody, all your customers make these decisions. So in your opinion, from your experience, how can a leader determine and communicate the right value to the other leaders of the organization to make this buying decision simple and getting everybody on the same page?
I think, if I look at it, customer experience, which was erstwhile a CMO responsibility, has become an important metric for the entire CXO community. You think of it from a CIO perspective, what has he done to improve the customer experience? NPS is not just a CEO metric, right? It's a organization-wide metric. And I'll give you a few reasons why this is more important now than it was before, right? So you see the disruptions that have been caused across the world, right? Even before pandemic, you had large enterprises, which were like legacy, 30 years of business and everything, being challenged by very new, nimble startup companies, that gave consumers a simple way to solve their problems, meet their daily needs, satisfy financial requirements, so the whole aspect of customer experience became very important. And then, you had in last year, like some of my colleagues on the panel talked about, right? February 2020, you're thinking about the next 10 years, and now you suddenly have pandemic and everything is here and now. And Pradeep is absolutely right. People were thinking about what's going to happen today, right? And as the pandemic came across, a lot of organizations which were kind of ready, saw their existing customers demand more out of the customer experience, right? If I'm a customer of yours, I'm going through these challenges, I expect you to empathize with me and give me more. And then there was a huge amount of new customers that were never on the digital platform came across, right? Experience also meant that you're rewarding the journey. I talked about the example of Fitbit. You have Nike, and you have so many more, right? You have sports brands talking about that, and it required not only the CMO but the head of sales service, the head of marketing, the head of security, customer support, human resource, finance, and even the board to come together, right? So the concept here, right, is about one, it's the responsibility of all the CXOs within the organization. It's not about selling it to you, but how can you come on board? The second is that the process to create customer experience is not about creating a website or a marketing activity. It's about digitization of processes. It's about total employee motivation. Imagine you're trying to create a customer experience, but your employees are not motivated to do it. How do you create a customer experience, right? So these are certain things that I believe are quite important. Organizations who have stakeholders in each of these areas need to come together and define it as a common goal, and rather than selling to each other, make this objective that they need to achieve it together.
Got it. And these days now, all of you know this, that data and metrics is very easily available, right? We're living in the age of analytics. So what kind of metrics and data do you guys look at? Like Samit sir, what do you look at while making these digital transformation decisions? Are there any specific metrics?
Look, when you want to make the decision, I guess it is really about, where your organization wants to go. And I'm giving you the live example of what we as a company are going through. So there is a defined time period. Let's say we say it's a 3-year project, and at the end of 3 years, you want to have you have some revenue milestones, you have some financial milestones, you have some customer matrices, maybe brand matrices. But I think in terms of really, if you want to split, and I would personally like to see that the way we want to drive this project in our organization is really break this up into small goals, and not really look at one matrix and one goal. So during the execution of the project, I think goals to begin with should be what is the kind of what is your consumer behavior like? How does the consumer behaving when he's consuming your product and services to the digital world? Map some consumer journeys. If you got it right, then I think that is the first goal. You need to tick that off. I think the second is, what is the choice of technology? If you got that right, then you need to tick that off. The third is, what is the right architecture? What is the right platform? I think that's the third milestone. So I'm not really talking about metrics, but I'm really talking about milestones, goals, which you need to tick off, rather than have one grand plan that, at the end of 3 years, from this digital transformation, I expect my revenue market share to go up by, 10 basis points, and my profitability to go up by X percentages. And I could go on, for example, after that, so I think I would really say, instead of focusing on matrices during the digital transformation process, I think you should look at specific goals and small goals, step-by-step journeys, tick off each of them and move to the next one.
Understood. Because we're talking about this digital transformation. This is the big phrase that has come up in the last 2 years for a lot of companies, right? Even I'll give you an example as comedians also, right? Everybody has made this digital transformation into doing Zoom shows, this and that. Some brands are doing it half-heartedly, right? In the pandemic, some sites saying, "Chalo, kar le." But I think in the last 2 years, we've realized that this is a must, and we have to do it full. Half-heartedly, we can't do it, right? So as brands who have kind of invested half-heartedly into it, who now have realized the need and have to move into it properly, what do you suggest? What is the right move in this time?
Sapan, let me start by saying that no one can become successful through half-hearted attempts. Frankly, then it's like when organizations and leaders within that organization make a decision to change, it needs to be done with flawless execution. You need to have measurable KPIs. The change needs to be around the entire organization. And as we go ahead and measure success, as we go ahead and measure those KPIs, we need to have the ability to continuously make adjustments to the plan. I can say with confidence, and also know it for a fact, that organizations in every industry are today facing unprecedented disruptions, and the traditional approach won't work. It is no longer relevant, right? If you look at it in today's environment, consumers demanding differentiated services, right? They're saying, do you know me and do you empathize with me? Brands need to actually go ahead and really, you look at personalization, right? We know, and I don't want to name the OTT player, but one of the OTT players today has a huge amount of personalization at scale, right? So you kind of get stuck with that OTT player, or rather you love to see content from there because they're showing you what you want to see, and this is based on a lot of data and insights that they bring in, right?
Pradeep sir is messaging his team right now as you speak about OTT player.
Yeah, absolutely. and it's critical for all of us in the industry, including the marketing heads, the CIOs, the CDOs, that we need to have a cutting edge customer experience solution that can deliver incredible engagements in this environment, right? I think that's the baseline. There are so many examples across different industries that have been able to achieve success based on this. So I think from my perspective, half-hearted, don't even attempt it. It's better where you are, because you'll waste a lot of money and effort and not come with outcomes. But if you really want to do something, do smaller, as we put it across earlier, right? Do smaller things, take steps into digitization and digital transformation, and be successful at it, and then the entire engagement of these smaller steps will become much more than the sum of all.
Got it. I think you're pretty much saying what Samit sir also said. You guys agree on that point in that way.
Correct.
It's fair. Amit sir, we had the team shared one very interesting research with us that said that in the last 1 year there was like a considerable growth in the sales of kitchen and electronic appliances. That was something interesting. One, have you seen that, and how have you incorporated that into your strategy for the next 1 year or 5 year plans for the company?
See, Tapan, I think that's a very good insight that is brought in terms of what has happened is premiumization is something that is happening globally. If you actually match the India trends versus the global trends in the consumer appliances and durable space, the premiumization is actually happening. People are upgrading to premium products that they really want to have. So, for example, there are two ways it is actually happening. So, I have one particular air purifier at my place. Why not? I can have second or the third purifier. Can I actually upgrade the brand that I was actually investing in that particular? And that's a global phenomena, and that is
Yeah,
happening in the entire country to bring it. What has happened, which
right.
is very, very specific to India, there's a lot of reverse migration that has happened in last 1.5 years. Most of the
Ah,
people actually move from their particular base cities where they're actually working to their home cities. And what has
ah.
happened is I have a certain lifestyle that I'm actually doing in Delhi or Bombay or
And
Bangalore.
now I'm taking it back.
To my own place, let's say I'm going
Yeah,
to plant, but I want the
yeah,
same particular products because that is my life has actually been running. So what is happening? You're also
right.
trying to get those particular products to build into the
Yeah,
entire. What has happened? Most of the places you won't have the distribution. Obviously, distribution is a very costly affair. You just can't have
yeah, yeah,
shops everywhere. So online has actually played that entire particular need gap solution for everything, and that will
yeah,
continue to stay because the demand is continuously coupling. So, for example, let's say I used to have a basic water purifier in my place. My parents used to do it. Now I really want to have something which is an RO plus UV plus UF, everything put together, and
yeah,
that is what I
yeah.
used to use it. The
That's what it
reverse
is.
migration has actually changed big time. So from top 20 cities that are actually getting maximum sales, now it has increased to 60 and 65 cities. And that trend will
Wow.
continue to at the hypothesis which market says today. In
Yeah,
next 1 year, it will go to around 162, 65 cities where you can actually
yeah.
see contribution from much more higher across the entire industry.
Understood. So from your point of view, what are the metrics that you look at to consider the customer experience level when these movements are happening?
It's a very very tough question to be very I'll tell you something because in our industry it is you have so many stakeholders. It is not about only one stakeholder or okay it's a customer. You also have specifiers, you also have electricians, you also have
Yeah,
architects, and frankly speaking it is better said than you can actually make or satisfy one person at one point of time rather than making all of them at the same time. So there are
right.
different matrices. There are different matrices. For example, project has a different matrix, consumer has different matrix. But one thing that is had there should not be a negative connotation from the brand or the experience that they have. I think that's
Got it.
the bottom line that we actually follow. We may not be able to fulfill everything that you want, whether whatever customer,
Right.
but the bigger idea is there should not be a negative connotation
It
across
should
the
not be
brand.
a negative business.
That's a larger impact and that's a larger challenge going forward.
Understood. Ankur, do you have any more insights from the audience that you can share with us?
Yes, absolutely. I have got a very interesting input
Oh,
on that who should be responsible for budgeting a CX investment. And Pradeep, you kind of
oh,
responsible
oh,
for
oh.
the CXOs, and I'd definitely come to Samit on this one because it's like he won and he lost. So
Samit, people either love you or hate you. We don't know which one it is.
so Pradeep, but I will start with you. What is your opinion, on this? Who should be responsible for the CX budgeting in an organization?
I think what we need to do is replace E with F and F with E. I think we are just about there.
Awesome. Awesome.
The
Samit, what
CEO
is
has
your
to
view
have
on this?
Pradeep has just given up
CEO
and he's
needs
like,
to have 0% views on that because see the CEO, like I said, is a facilitator. At the end of the day, if the person who's bringing in the technology, whether it is the backend technology driving the infrastructure or the product design and the tech that goes into the ultimate interface that the consumer has with your offering, whether it's a service offering or a digital offering or a physical product, the marketing guys actually have the best listening posts because they're listening to consumers all the time. And not only are they listening to consumers, they're also benchmarking your offering against what's there as competitive offering from other players in the market for you to be able to
yeah,
stand out. So I think the collective combination of the finance guy who's making sure that you're not going over the top and are conscious of the cost and hence value delivery to the consumer, the marketer who's listening to what the consumer ask is and is designing and creating the product around it, and the technology guys who are enveloping or bundling the whole thing and putting it together, they need to have an equal role. And I mean, a 40-40-30 or a 35-35-35 doesn't really make a difference. The CEO just needs to feel proud that he has a team that is really being able to do all of the work so that he can go out in press conferences and panels like this and take all the credit.
That's a good one.
Samit, Samit sir, what do you have to say about this 46% responsibility that has been given to you?
Versus the zero. So now, if 46 is a winner, I'm wearing the CTO hat. But, I think I just wanted to, give my two bits on the situation. So I think essentially it has to be a combination of the of the CMO, CSO, the guy who's handling the customer, who's really responsible for the first card outward feed from the customer. So he's the guy who's actually demanding the solution in terms of this is the way my consumer experience, process needs to look like, how will I handle my moments of truth, etc. And I think the CTO essentially is providing the solution. So there is a demand side and there is a supply side. So the CTO essentially has this, is essentially fulfilling or supplying to the demand which the CMO or the CSO makes. And like Pradeep said very rightly, I think the CFO really is the goalkeeper or the gatekeeper to ensure that ultimately you're not operating with unlimited resources and you are operating under some financial constraints. So he really does the the gatekeeping to ensure that you are not going overboard on some investments where you have really no visibility on what
he's the father of the family.
Yeah, the father of the family is the CEO. That is without a shadow.
There's the mother of the family who gets the money from the locker.
Yeah, you can say he's the mother of the family. So he's really the guy who's doing the balancing act between what the IT guy, because the IT, the CTO will come and probably propose the most expensive solution which will meet the demand of the CMO the most. So the CFO really does the balancing act. So I would be a little more liberal and give the CFO a few percentage points and not zero.
So,
Nitin sir, do you agree?
Move to the next one. I actually have a very interesting question from our audience, and I would like to quickly take this to Nitin. Actually, one of our audience member asked, "What are the metrics that one can use for assessing the efficacy of the CX programs?" And since you deal with very different kind of customers, I think you can definitely put in some insight over here.
No, absolutely. I think I have a fantastic panel, and they can certainly chime in. But from my perspective, I think the customer engagement metric around they were able to find products and services easily, and they were looking at things around how frictionless it was for consumers to buy those products and services. That's an important metric. So not to go too much on on a very esoteric marketing language, but like the conversion rates that we get, right? You're sending out so many communications. How often? What's the kind of engagement that you do? What channels have been, very productive during that engagement, and you're getting conversions around that. That's very important from a CX perspective. I think the NPS also brings in some level of customer experience and customer journey, efficacy indicators. And I would say that there's another metric called recency, frequency, and monetary, which actually gives you the metrics around how good your customer experience investments or solutions are when you're dealing with organizations. So there's if I go to the depth of it, there are hundreds of KPIs that you could actually bring forth, and we provide capability and technology around measuring each one of them, right? And then you go ahead and really look at what's important at a top level and measure that. So, for example, from a CEO's perspective, you won't worry about those 100 KPIs like what's my click to cash kind of a metric, or what's the conversion rate I'm getting. But from a CMO perspective, it becomes very important because they're designing messages and they're sending it out and they're seeing that whether the audiences or their consumers are liking it or not. But let's say from a CEO's perspective, it would be more around the fact that how many customers did we retain, how many new subscriptions did we bring forth, and who are our top most profitable segments, right? So it's different metric for different perspectives, but yes, it's important for us to measure.
Awesome. One more question, Sapan, I found very interesting and definitely want to kind of get a bite from Amit on this one. And this is a very interesting one. So someone has asked, any clue how to differentiate between genuine feedback from the customer versus doctored feedback? Because there are tools, but ultimately, how do you differentiate between the feedback and factor that voice of customer into your CX strategy?
I think it's a joint and a co-creation, Ankur, that actually works. It is not about can you get 100% right? No, definitely the answer is that you can't go that. But sometimes you have to take it as a pinch of salt. What exactly is the genuine things? I'll tell you from my experience. If you ask me as a before marketer, I always think I'm a customer first. So if I've been in his particular shoes, what would be my situation? And I'll tell you one practical example which happened during the first pandemic, that somebody had literally have a huge problem and all the family members were actually down with COVID, and their water purifier was not working. 2 days, the entire particular service guy saying, no, sir, it is they're just trying to have the service, they're just trying to pull it because it's a service period, their AMC is getting over, they want to do it. But genuinely, when somebody spoke to them and said, it was genuinely a problem, and water is something I can't order somebody, because at that point of the time, the situation was very tough. Nobody will deliver water to you. Even a bottle water will not be delivered. Yeah. If you actually see on a face of it, obviously the AMC was 3 days before the actual expiry. If you say this, you're actually just trying to utilize it. But on the actual context, it actually makes a huge difference. But one thing which I see, which is not a very matrix or any number that come, but I think for a brand and a brand custodian, kindness and empathy, either as a customer or a consumer, it actually works wonders. That's an investment that actually works wonders. You have to filter that. If you are able to filter that, then obviously your 90% of the problems will solve. Still, there will be 10 to 15% places where you actually get fooled because customers trying to, but that doesn't matter. In a larger piece, I'm also trying to satisfy that customer also, irrespective of food or whatever he has done. That is how the beauty of the entire piece is.
Awesome. I think empathy is definitely the winner when it comes to customer for sure. Over to you, Sapan. I wanted to kind of bring in some important questions from the audience for sure.
Thank you so much. Very, very interesting insights. We are almost towards the end of the panel. I have one question which I want to throw open to the panel again, which is that all of you belong to different industries, but you're all on the same page about how you want to make this digital transformation for the businesses that you run. So according to you, how do different industries see the customer experience value? Like different industries must be having different points of view. So what do you think is the difference in that? Pradeep sir, do you want to start?
Surely I'll take a shot at it, because I think a lot of our experiences around consumer experiences or customer experiences really evolved from what is on offer today, right? The current range of products and services, and how do you do marginal or incremental improvements to that to make sure that your service or product delivery continues to be consistent, people continue to pay good value for it. I think what gets lost somewhere in all of this is how to create the organization future ready, how to create products and services that the consumers may demand 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And with the rapid evolution of technology, that becomes extremely important. And somebody in the organization has to own that sort of baton and run with it. I'm taking this clue from one of the word clouds that Ankur had put up earlier, which had that word crypto. Now, the person who had put up that word crypto would have actually thought about why does, and when you hear crypto, you think cryptocurrency. But if I was to quickly cover it, the whole concept of cryptocurrency, the whole concept of how technologies such as blockchain, how such technologies such as tokenizations of products and services in the tokenized ecosystems, creating new paradigms of commerce outside the traditional currency banking ecosystems, will create completely new avenues of product creation, product delivery, product consumption, product monetization for businesses that are living in the digital universe. Is a rapidly evolving area. And I think if you have your ears to the ground, if your CX processes are astute enough to figure out the discernible changes in the trends that are happening in your consumer's mindset, that is where you will be able to do. And which is why I love, the marketing brain that Amit is. And I had said that, he's a rock star marketer. I mean, the whole concept of empathy, the whole concept of picking up those anecdotal evidences and anecdotal incidents to draw longer inferences out of that, which may then create itself a substrata of strategy that will allow you to be relevant to your customers on a sustainable basis. And that's really what this game is all about. So I'll say that, yes, looking forward to the future is extremely important, even as you serve your current base.
Yeah. Amit sir, as Pradeep said, empathy very important, but how else do you think different industries see the value in this?
Yeah, I would suggest, I think different industry and different functions should create their own particular matrices. And one particular matrices, when somebody has decided, which I mentioned, should not be the matrices. So please create what is your consumer experience index, what is your consumer interaction index, what is your consumer involvement index. Because end of the day, for a marketer, for a brand, that is what it matters to me. I may be doing very well in terms of all the financial parameters. I may be doing very well on everything. But for me, and that is how I think for every industry, it requires building a customized set of matrices that you need to define. And why you need to define, then the improvement can happen. And that's how I see, I think it is much more better in today's context.
Understood. Samit sir, any insight here from your side?
So, I have a little bit of a different take on this, Apan, because I think,
Okay.
and this is from my experience of working across multiple industries and product and services. And I think essentially what every organization is trying to give a consumer is what he has a need or what we are trying to create as a need. And that
Yeah.
need essentially gets fulfilled through a process. And in every process, the customer has what you call the 6-7 moments of truth. When
Yeah.
he's actually sampling your content in terms of, the catalog of products, how is he going through that experience? Second
Yeah.
is when he's making a purchase, what is the kind of experience he's going through? When he's
Yeah.
making payment, when the product is getting delivered to you, and finally the reverse logistics when he doesn't like a product and he wants to return it to you. And
Yeah.
lastly,
Yeah.
when he's giving a feedback. So,
Yeah.
every product or every service which you're essentially giving, maybe service skips a few steps here, has
Yeah.
these moments of truth where the customer is experiencing you. And if you can
Yeah.
really measure and have matrices to monitor how you are faring, whether through a poll or whatever,
Yeah.
across these moments of truth, is
Yeah.
how every industry should really gauge or measure their customer experience. So I really
Understood.
think it is essentially how every organization moments their customer interaction and experience across these moments of truth, which I think is standard
Understood.
across most
Every
organizations.
industry. Nitin
Yeah.
sir, do you agree with this? You're on mute, sir.
Yeah, I saw that. I think I completely agree, and I would say that there's a lot of learning I had from the panel today because if I look at what all did we discuss? We said that companies have to be innovative and to deliver best customer experience, they need to build digital agility into the operations. I think
Yeah.
if you talked about the fact that it's not just about one area, but everybody needs to come together, and that has to be the core strategy of customer experience, right? The second
Right.
part we talked about was around embedding data and analytics across the enterprise. So you mentioned that getting data is very easy. Frankly, I would
Yeah.
tell you that more than 70% of the organizations getting data is not easy, and it's
Oh,
it's very companies that have achieved that are very different in terms of their customer experience, and I don't think it's very difficult, but we know you've got to set your mind to it, you've got to set your
yeah.
sight on that we want to
Yeah.
bring data together. The
Yeah.
other part was that this came out of crypto security. There's a lot of emphasis that companies need to bring on safeguarding customer data,
Yeah.
and which is even more relevant and more important because we are becoming more and more digital. You look at the entire e-commerce space and how you can sell all the identification information that you're putting across so many multiple sites and all that. So customer data
Yeah.
becomes very important. And I love the fact when Amit talked about staying close to customers, right? It's
Yeah.
not about that you're getting all this feedback and what do. You need to be close to the customer, empathize with it, and even more important now because you don't have physical proximity to your customers now. Imagine
Yeah.
you can't reach to your customer. You have to be close to your customer. They need to feel that empathy. So these are certain things that I believe are very important for organizations that want to epitomize digital engagement and customer experience.
Understood. I have one last question to the panel, which is again, as we started asking, how do you even know that your customer experience needs improvement? In a similar vein, you can't trust your customers to tell you if they're not seeing value. Like most of them will just leave and switch to a different product, unless you're a stand-up comedian, they'll come and give you galis. But other than that, they'll not even fill online surveys these days. They'll just go to a competitor, or if they've had a very bad experience, they will come and on social media they will try to complain about it. But so how do you and your team find out what is bothering your customers? Is there a market research? How do you guys evaluate that? Anybody? Amit sir, would you like to begin with this?
See, there are many research upon your brand health research, your product health research, which can tell you that what exactly to it, if you really want to get into a deep dive of any particular category or any particular. But the larger piece is, which is what is your engagement level with your customer, irrespective
Yeah.
whatever your customer is. If that is going
Yeah.
down, it's a big problem for the organization. And
Yeah.
I think you should always keep and you should always see what is the engagement level and why it is actually dipping, why it is actually shifting from engagement level. Because why
Right.
some people having a dialogue? If I'm not happy with you, I'll say, yes, Apan, I'm not happy with you. This is not working with you. But if your customer is just keeping cold and is not getting interacting with you, see, there are three things which are very important when you say in terms of what you need to do. First is your engagement, second is your interaction, and third is how you're actually involving into the entire discussion. Are you trying to, just because I'm a brand, I will not be able to solve you, this is take it or leave it. If you're involving a customer, understanding, he also understands the perspective that beyond a point you can't do it, certain things to look for. If you do this entire particular framework, it works wonders for it.
Yeah, understood. What about Pradeep, sir? What do you have to say in this? How do you understand what the customers' complaints are?
See, there are multiple listening posts available today, and I think these listening posts can be active or these can be passive. I mean, social media obviously is a great example, and people are pretty vocal these days in terms of expressing their sentiments, even when they don't fully expect to be heard by the brand. They want to make their expressions and their voice heard. So that's obviously a good primary research. I think some of the traditional methodologies of focus group discussions or commissioning primary or secondary research, etc., still continue to be in vogue, and it has its utility as well. But I'm saying that from a quality perspective, I think sometimes the quantity of feedback that you're getting and quantity of insights that you're getting on the consumers helps you refine the qualitative aspect of it. And that is where digital tools come in extremely handy. So if you have a wide number of listening posts that is capturing all sentiments in large, vast amounts of databases, and you have data sciences teams that are invested in discerning trends and have algorithms that discern inferences out of the huge amounts of data that you're getting, I think you will have a sharply defined marketing program. It obviously depends, varies across product categories and the kind of consumers that you're dealing with. For somebody like us, where every consumer interaction with every aspect of entertainment content, depending on time of day, place, which part of the globe is he coming in from, demographic segmentation, age, gender, everything is a queue, right? So we are literally,
I think analytics for you would be, you would have a lot of analytics.
It's a lifeblood. I mean, we our heart doesn't function, our brain doesn't function if we don't have that lifeblood of information, and that's how we evolve as a body. And I think the more you exercise your muscles, that's how you grow as a human. So it essentially means that the more you experiment with your program and see the response to every change that you do in either your product or your marketing campaign, that's how you get the insights to do more. And I think it's an iterative cycle, and most importantly, it's a fun cycle. I mean, it's as marketers, it's awesome these days to be a marketer because you have so much information. I mean, marketers like Amit and me who go back almost 2 decades plus, and I don't want to reveal our ages here. I think when we started off, we were hamstrung.
You already did with your collection of books and cassettes. I think we revealed the age of the entire planet.
I didn't say cassettes, although I have them, but I decided to stay silent on that. No, but the fact is, we did have this quantum of information earlier. But now it's just simply amazing. And thank God for technology. Thank God for the Shantanu Narayans and Krishnas and Indra Nuis and Sundar Pichais and Satya Nadelas of the world. And Nitin Singhs of the world and Uncle Mittas of the world to really give us the technology. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. Of course. You're very, I love how passionate you're about data. I love seeing people who are passionate about data. What about Samit? Do you also look at data that actively, or in your industry is not as?
Yeah, so we, of course, like all industries, we look at data, we look at customer feedback, the voice of the customer, etc. And like other panelists said, that thankfully, because of the digital transformation, there is a lot of information on customer behavior, customer feedback, especially now with the addition of social media. There is enough information across industries. I think what I've realized is, I think you said something, Sapan, at the starting to say that some customers silently go away. And there is an old thing which we used to say, at least in my earlier organization in EMAR, that for every customer who actually complains, there are 9 customers who silently go away without complaining, right?
Yeah.
That's skewed. And I think with this whole plethora of information about customers and their feedback, their behavior, their engagement levels that we have, I think one thing which we need to take very seriously is how we actually handle customer feedback. Because more often than not, you have tons of information, you have data analytics, and you finally come down to some 9-10 specific feedbacks at a point of time on how customer is perceiving you. But I've seen more often than not, organizations really struggle in terms of kind of resolving that feedback and doing something meaningful and permanent in nature so that it doesn't recur. So I think as much as information is available, I think the second leg of this journey is really how you take customer feedback seriously, internalize it, and eventually do something about it, instead of just saying
Got
that,
it.
I know what the
Got it.
customer thinks, but and hence I think Amit mentioned, I think empathy is what plays a very critical role in terms of actually close looping the customer feedback.
Yeah. Customer feedback. Ankur, I hope you have taken the customer feedback for this panel well so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything is okay, no?
We have made sure that we are able to bring in the customer and our audience voice into the panel. That's the whole idea of switching the hats.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much. My one last question to Nitin sir before we drive off. We've been discussing customer and customer feedback. Nitin sir, according to you, what drives the customers and employees both to be loyal to the brand? And how do we make this customer experience better in the long term?
Yeah, I think it's a question and an answer that I can go on forever. But to put it shortly, on the customer side, I did talk about that we reward journey, we reward where we get aligned to it, closer to them. It's personalization at scale, all those things that I mentioned, very critical. I think on the employee side, sometimes a lot of organizations forget about employee. And I follow a concept called TOMO, which is total motivation. So it's about how do you bring processes that make your employees empowered. I think a few of my panel members talked about empowering employees, empowering people within the organization, and we've got to make every employee the custodian of the brand. So customers, engagement, customer service, empathy, brand value, their perceived value of what they're paying for the services that they're getting. On the employee side, the same level of experience to employees, right? Having principles and policies which are basically helping them become the amplifiers of the brand, amplifiers of service. And you can see this in some of the industries, right? Samit talked about his experience in Obroy's. I think the employee motivation in some of the hospitality actually creates the kind of experience for the brand, right? So my perspective is that customer experience is across the organization. Being a person who sells a lot of products and solutions, I would say that it is important to go ahead and buy the right product and the right set of partners to implement it. But what is more important is managing the change across the entire organization in processes which deliver these expected outcomes faster, right? That's what's important.
Yeah, understood. I learned a new phrase from you, TOMO. I've heard of FOMO.
Yeah.
This is the first time I learned.
Yeah, exactly. So Sapan, TOMO is the new employee experience mantra.
Amazing. That's on that lovely note. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We all, I think, shared some great insights and we learned from all of you. I hope you guys had a good time. To the audience who joined us, thank you so much. And thank you for responding on Menti, especially that guy who wrote wife. We really appreciate it. And everybody else, thank you for joining us. I hope you stay safe. I hope your companies grow, your digital transformation is great, and your customers never leave you. Thank you so much on behalf of Adobe, ArgilDX, and Tiwari. This is Sapan Verma. Thank you so much, Pradeep sir. Thank you so much, Samit sir, Amit sir, Nitin, and Ankur. Thank you for being a great co-host and handling all the tech for this. Hope to see you guys again the next time.